What do you do when art becomes power? You burn it. This is the story of iconoclasm. Once, art was the pursuit of beauty, form, and transcendence. Today, a banana taped to a wall sells for $120,000. What happened from the polished marble of Michelangelo and the haunting light in a Caravaggio? Art once aimed to elevate. The Renaissance was a period of renewed inspiration, grounded in both classical ideas and drawing inspiration from the divine. Artists, thinkers, and scholars sought to imitate and aspire towards the ideal, reflecting beauty, order, and truth as a way of honoring God and reflecting the human spirit. This pursuit wasn't limited to art alone. It shaped advancements in science, literature, philosophy, and architecture as well. In visual art especially, there was an effort to merge technical skill with a sense of higher purpose. But fast forward to the 20th century, and suddenly technique is oppressive, and structure is bourgeois. Iconoclasm, literally image breaking, isn't new. The movement began in the 8th century in the Byzantine Empire, when religious zealots smashed icons, claiming that they led to idolatry and were distractions from the true faith. But iconoclasm isn't just about broken statues. It's about control. Who gets to decide what's sacred, what's beautiful, and what gets to be erased? Over the centuries, waves of iconoclasm, religious, political, and cultural, wiped away generations of art. But the 20th century introduced a new kind of destruction, not physical, but conceptual. Traditional icons of beauty, order, and truth were suddenly the suspect. The 1960s questioned everything: moral norms, political power, religious authority, gender roles, and perhaps most radically, the value of aesthetic standards themselves. Institutions corrupt, traditions oppressive, standards elitist. Suddenly, not knowing how to paint became a virtue. Artists stopped being creators trying to bring the image of God down to earth and became provocateurs. Marcel Duchamp had already begun to challenge the traditional notions of art in the 1900s with his piece entitled The Fountain, a urinal presented as art. By the 1960s, however, these boundaries had been thoroughly dismantled, and the conventions of the art world were being radically redefined. What exactly were the icons being torn down? The classical ideal, the human body in perfect form, as seen in Greek sculpture and Renaissance art, was seen as patriarchal and Eurocentric. The canon, Shakespeare, Mozart, Rembrandt, once the gold standard, now seen as symbols of exclusion and elitism. Art institutions, museums and galleries became symbols of capitalist commodification and white cultural dominance. Skill itself became suspicious. To have mastery implied being submissive to a master. In short, the iconoclasm was a rebellion that expressed itself in different forms through conceptual art, which declared the idea more important than the execution.
It's just, I ran out of ideas.
Through minimalism and abstraction, stripping away representation. Through pop art, which elevated mass culture. Soup cans, comic books, celebrities, to fine art, mocking the very idea of a cultural elite. Art no longer sought to uplift, it sought to disrupt. So, if the 1960s smashed the idols, the 70s and the 80s looked at the wreckage and said, now what? And thus, postmodernism was born, not as a movement with values and goals, but as a mood. Postmodernism doesn't say, this is the truth. It says, truth is a construct. It doesn't say, this is beautiful. It asks, what even is beauty? It doesn't create new gods. It parodies the old ones and sells you t-shirts of them. It's art with air quotes around it. The age of irony, simulation, and pastiche. Imagine a world where all styles, symbols, and meanings are on the clearance rack. You can mix Renaissance with punk, classical with kitsch, tragedy with sitcom. And if it confuses you, well, that's exactly the point. Where modernism sought purity, postmodernism embraced pollution. High and low art blended. The gallery in the shopping mall, same thing. A Campbell soup can, as worthy of contemplation as the Sistine Chapel, maybe even more. Art became self-aware, ironic, even cynical. It commented on itself, on society, on capitalism, often while profiting from the very system it mocked. The 1960s didn't just change art, they changed the very definition of art. In tearing down the icons, they unleashed a freedom. As standards were deconstructed, the audience were told to expand their minds. But what if we lost something along the way? Craft, discipline, meaning. What we see in galleries today is not art, it's anti-art. Now everything is art. And if everything is art, is anything really art anymore? The age of iconoclasm destroyed the sacred. Postmodernism questioned whether it was ever sacred to begin with. But maybe now, after all the doubt and deconstruction, we're ready to build again. What comes next? That's the real question. What age do we find ourselves in today? Today, we live in the long shadow of postmodernism. We expect irony in everything. We treat sincerity with suspicion, and we're fluent in references and memes. The line between artist and influencer is blurred. Between art and content, gone. French thinker Jean Baudrillard wrote that now we live in a world of simulacra, copies without originals. Our culture is no longer based on real experiences, but on signs, media, and simulations of reality. Art reflects this. A painting of a TV character, a film that references another film.
Have you ever seen the movie Forrest Gump? Yes.
A TikTok meme based on a YouTube video based on a tweet about a movie. We live in a hall of mirrors, where meaning reflects endlessly until it dissolves. And yet, we're exhausted. The irony, the fragmentation, the infinite scroll. It's entertaining, but is it fulfilling? In tearing down the old and remixing the new, postmodernism gave us a culture of infinite possibility and infinite fragmentation. It gave us freedom, but it also left us wondering, if everything is a remix, is there anything real left to say? People are craving authenticity. Artists are returning to figurative painting, to craft, to emotional resonance. Not because it's fashionable, but because it feels human. We're learning to combine old values with new tools. In this fractured age, beauty is something radical. Not the surface kind, but beauty as depth, as order, as a window into meaning. Maybe we're not in a clearly defined movement right now, where the boundaries between styles, mediums, and ideas are becoming more fluid. Still, there's a noticeable shift happening. It's not a rejection of freedom, but a renewed search for meaning. It's not about returning to the past, but about moving forward with a stronger connection to what came before. Art might never be unified under a single style or philosophy again, but perhaps it can become more honest, more grounded, and more real. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel to support me and see more content like this. And please do let me know what you think about this topic in the comments below.